Welcome to Drinks in the Library, the only library where drinks aren't just allowed, they are required. I'm your librarian host, Gigi Howard, and each episode I'll be interviewing a guest about a much-loved book that we will be pairing with a drink for you to enjoy along with us or consider for your next book club meetup. As always, stay curious and support your local library. Hello, Libration Nation. All right, this week, I'm so excited. We're talking about a book that I recently loved. It is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. It's delightful. It's humorous. It's sweet. It's adventure. It follows a young woman, Tress, on a perilous journey to save the man she loves. And, we're diving into cozy fall, autumn season. And I thought it was the perfect time to talk about this enchanting fantasy that you could totally be reading by a fire right now. Joining me is my husband, Bill, who is making his fourth appearance on Drinks in the Library. And as always, we have a great time riffing and cracking each other up. All right, so for our drink, Tress loves a salty tea. I know, salty tea. So I wanted to pick a salty drink to go with that, and we went with a Salted Caramel Coffee Martini. And you could make the non-alcoholic option a Salted Caramel Latte. It would be perfect. All right, one thing before we get started, if you are enjoying Drinks in the Library, please tell a friend about it this week. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I love and appreciate that. All right, let's get to it and dive into this amazing story. You don't have anything in front of you, so you're going right from memory, I guess.
Cream always rises to the top. That's right, it's a Bill episode.
Yeah. So to be clear, we've done Bill episodes where I interview you about a book you like. And we've done one before, the Bird by Bird, where you interviewed me about one I like. And this is in that vein.
Yeah, this is a Gigi-centric episode that Bill happens to be in.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
With that, you're talking a lot. I should be doing an intro here.
Yeah.
So, with that, what is the book that you brought in today?
Thank you for asking. So, I picked Tress of the Emerald Sea. It is by Brandon Sanderson. I was thinking today this is the second Sanderson episode I've done, because we did Mistborn last year.
Correct.
With Becca Castagna, who got you turned on to the Sanderson ethos.
I would say I did start reading Mistborn based off of that episode, and I both enjoyed it, but man, the length. I mean, that was 3 quite long books.
Yeah.
That I didn't anticipate dedicating, a quarter of a year to completing. I don't read quite as fast or as often as you, though. You probably would have called that a Wednesday.
No. Well, it's interesting. I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but in prepping for this, I did listen to a clip of Brandon Sanderson speaking about how bookstores and publishers don't like long books. It actually costs more money. I mean, it makes sense, but we don't charge people extra if the book is long, or you don't get charged extra if the movie is long. But it actually costs quite a bit more to have those big books. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, in a bookstore, it's taking up real estate, right?
Yeah. He said that too, is that, it takes up you could get 3 paperbacks for most of his books.
Yeah. Which I guess is the opposite of how the industry was designed for a long time, where it's some books are long just because they got paid by the word. And so you had Dostoevsky and Dickens out there being like, yep, I'm going to crank out a new house. I'm going to crank out a new house in this book. But they are lengthy. It's really good world building in the Sanderson universe, but And you reading this and wanting to talk about Tress of the Emerald Sea. I keep calling it Emerald Isles. Emerald Sea. It made me think about, I spent all that time last year? Mm-hmm. Reading those. Can't remember anything about them.
Oh, really?
I remember the overarching story. I remember there was a power base, and they use elements to do things, and I recall the ending. But I was a little confused because this is taking place in the Cosmere, yes. I think is what he calls them. But it's essentially like a Mistborn extension, which I won't spoil how Mistborn ends, is really interesting to have an extension of that series.
Okay. Well, we don't know when it was set in the series. So we talked quite a bit about Mistborn, but going to Tress of the Emerald Sea, it is a standalone from Brandon Sanderson. Because I said I was reading Sanderson, and you were like, no, don't do it. It's going to take up all your time. And I said, it's just a standalone. I'm just going to get through this. And I loved it. I picked it up. I don't know. It was on my TBR list, and I saw it was available at the library, so I picked it up. And I said, who recommended this book to me? Why was it on my list? Because it was so good, but nobody has fessed up. I put that on Instagram or whatever. But yeah, I picked it up and loved it, and then I want more people to read it so I can have people to talk about it with.
Yeah, I've started it in prepping for this episode, and I will say it's a bit of a departure from the other. I think Sanderson's books lend themselves to audiobook really well.
Yeah.
It's a straightforward narrative. They're not grimdark fantasy. They're not beach over the head sci-fi. They're very, easily digested, but also kind of like comforty food. I'm not heavily impacted by any of the story either. But this one I found to be also that, but way funnier.
Yes.
The Mistborn series, I would not venture to say was very funny, where this is at points hilarious. With that, why don't you tell us what the story is about?
Okay, so Tress it literally starts off, the first chapter is called The Girl, and it says, in the middle of the ocean there was a girl who lived upon a rock. And then it continues on that she basically has lived on this rock, and nobody is allowed to leave the rock, and she lives there with her family. It's an island, and she has a good friendship with a boy named Charlie. They're both maybe I want to say 16 or 17. I don't remember if they say exactly how old she is. And Charlie pretends to be a groundkeeper's son, but actually, and Tress knows this, he's the son of the Duke. And so he comes and they talk each day, and you can tell there's a little bit of a romance coming between her and Charlie. And I want to be careful with this story because it's sort of like an onion.
Yeah, but that is, I think, within the first 20 pages of it. I also love how delightfully bad Charlie is at not pretending to be the groundskeeper.
Yeah.
He has a signet ring. He flips around when she comes around.
Yeah.
He's at fencing practice. He's in the big cities, this is how they do the gardening, is with a sword. And it's just just a lovable idiot.
Yeah. And she really loves him. They kind of talk about how he drones on and on, but she likes that he drones on and on. I think Tress's character is probably very practical, maybe a little bit not shy, but I would say she's not gregarious.
I said on, Mistborn didn't leave me very pensive about it. Was reading entertainment. It was like reading an action movie. This has some little lines that I found, made me a little pensive. And one was, she talks about being ordinary. And by being ordinary, that makes her an outlier, because everyone in her town's I'm from this noble family, and it's all made up. It's kids trying to be special, right? And she leans into being ordinary, which makes her not ordinary.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts around? And that's how she describes herself, and that's how others describe her too. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Sanderson is trying to do something with that. And I think specifically they say things the other girls said things well, I'm not like other girls. And Tress says, well, I am. I am just like any other girl kind of thing. So it's kind of playing off that a little bit, which is, I don't know, calls into question like pitting women against each other. But I don't think that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's toying with a traditional story here, in a rather comical way, I think, because it's, so often it's like he's special, but no one knew it, and no one treated him that way. This one's like literally everyone's telling her she's special, and she's like, nope, I'm not. I'm never leaving this place. I just want to be one boring window cleaner.
Yeah, she is. She's very set to live there, and she seems content. She has a loving family. Her parents are characters early on in the story. And I think unless she's provoked or pushed, Tress would have stayed on the rock for her entire life. But of course, that wouldn't make for a very good story. So,
right. Can you describe? It's not really. The sea is a interesting aspect of this, and could you talk a little bit? That function I thought was interesting.
It's hard to wrap your mind about it, but Sanderson talks about the fact that the sea is not, ocean is not water. It's these spores, and the spores can kill you.
Yeah.
And if they have any water in them, they'll grow huge vines. So you don't even want one like to get stuck in your eye. So people are afraid of the sea. So that's like a little bit different element to it. I also want to mention Tress. So a couple things about Tress. First thing I love is that Tress is not her real name. You remember this? Her real name is Glorf.
Glorf, which is a family name.
It was a family name. But then she has this wild sort of light brown hair, maybe a little bit of blonde to it. And so everyone calls her Tress. Mm-hmm. So those are two things you find out on page 1 is about her hair and that her real name is Glorf. And then also she is obsessed with cups. She's a cup collector, and which is kind of weird. But that's something I think Charlie and she exchanged cups early on, and he kind of enjoys that part. Oh, I just saw a little thing at the very end of the first chapter, going back to what we were saying before about her being okay staying there. It says, the last line is, "There's a beauty to this, actually. I like it here, and I shall be fine to remain here all my life." So, is she going to stay on the rock? I also want to say that when I was reading this, the whole time I was reading this, I could not stop thinking about Princess Bride. I didn't know anything else about the story. I was just when I tell people about it, I'm like, it's so Princess Bride. Like, it feels the characters in the narration, it's sort of the adventure, but the characters are just a little off, a little wacky. And I found out at the end, and I don't think this is a spoiler at all, but he does write in the afterword that he wrote this after rewatching Princess Bride with his family. And his wife said something along the lines of, well, Buttercup, who's the titular character in Princess Bride. If people are listening to this podcast and they haven't seen Princess Bride, I don't know.
Weird.
I feel like that very me coded is that you've seen it. I mean, it's a very millennial thing to have seen, right? But
yeah, I thought about, because you had told me that before I started listening to it in preparation for this, and I never read the book Princess Bride. Yeah, I've never read that book. I know it's a much denser book than what the
film is.
Yeah, but what reminded me of the Princess Bride quite a bit is the narrator feels like the grandfather in the Princess Bride.
Yes.
Like, just as snarky, just as like...
Yes.
It's like, do you want to actually hear the story?
Yes.
He's even saying things like that occasionally.
Well, I did want to talk about the narrator, and maybe this is a good time to bring it in. So this is a good thing at the beginning to kind of see what I'm talking about with how it's told. It's talking about, this chapter is called The Father, and it's centered on Tress's dad, Lem. And it says, "Lem was not a poor man. Now you might say to me, Hoyd, this entire story has shown me the opposite. Lem's family is always scrimping to survive." And I would reply, "Please stop interrupting." So it definitely feels, you find out more about Hoyd. But yes, so he and his family watched Princess Bride, and the wife said something along the lines of, well, Buttercup doesn't really do anything, does she? And she really doesn't. And that is something I've always thought about that story is, I mean, I think I always took it as that Buttercup was really depressed and that's why she didn't do anything. But it's like her love is abducted by pirates and she just is like, oh, well, like, yeah, nothing I can do about it. And yeah, she doesn't really have any action. So I did feel like this was a very female-centric story and allowing Tress to go. And I don't think this is a spoiler at all. You kind of have to know she goes on an adventure. So so first they say Charlie's going to be married off because he's the Duke's son and they're trying to make all these alliances. But Charlie promises to Tress that he won't marry anyone. And he does all these things to make the women they're trying to marry him off to dislike him. So he will talk their head off and tell them all these boring stories. And tells a story where he explains or describes all the different sounds his body makes while he's going to sleep. I mean, Charlotte is just dull, but Tress loves that about him. But finally, they hook him up with a woman who's deaf, so she is not bothered by his crazy stories. Anyhow, so this is very early on, but forgive me, you have to know this part to kind of get into what Tress is about. And Charlie comes back, and he's been married, and Tress is heartbroken, but classic Tress, she's sort of resolute in her, okay, well, it's okay, I'm just gonna be happy for him. And she goes and sees him at the introduction of him and the bride, and it's not Charlie. They've placed somebody else to pretend to be the Duke's son, and Charlie is gone. Nobody knows where Charlie is.
Yeah, the part I really enjoyed was Charlie just seems to be insufferable to everyone but Tress. Mm-hmm. And when he was insufferable to all these young women they were trying to get him to marry, mm-hmm. the dad and the king just decided, we're going to send you off to a quest to this sorceress.
Yeah.
To stop her. And they were like, was he the best person to do this? And they're like, yeah. Of course. On his own, no support. This kid who is from a rock, who fights plants. His biggest love in his life is making up stories about teacups.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right guy. No one likes him. It's kind of funny. He's a very endearing character, but they even make the line yeah, even my footman's paid to be around me, and even he finds reasons to get me to stop talking. So.
Yeah, I think that makes the story even more special, that you're not gifted these characters that are perfect. They're very flawed, mm-hmm. but lovable, and it all comes together really well, I think. But so going back to just the Princess Bride, so this is, and Sanderson said this too, so it's not coming from me, but this is the Princess Bride if Buttercup, instead of just dismissing and saying, oh, well, now I got to marry Humperdinck, if Buttercup had gone to find Wesley and rescue him.
I think it would be safe to say Buttercup is just a vehicle to move a story. Mm-hmm. She's very flat. She's nothing more than a thing to be won, a thing to be fought mm-hmm. for, but she's a very flat character. And I think this is interesting. And also I read Mistborn, which is primarily a female-centric mm-hmm. main character, but this is a play on that to some extent. It made me think of what was the Reese Witherspoon thing? And it's just I'm tired of seeing movies where it's what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And that's what the women say. And it's when do you know a woman would just be what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And Tress is not that.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very capable person. There was a quote that I was shocked you didn't remember when I mentioned earlier. So describes the taste of something in the book was more twisted than the love life of librarians.
Ooh.
And I know a few, and they're a strange bunch.
He's probably not wrong.
If someone married to a librarian, I found this shocking. What are your thoughts on his depiction of
love, the love life of librarians? I I would say librarians like are more likely to be into weird, nerdy stuff. They're more likely to do cosplay, stuff like that. So I think that's sort of what I mean, there's also some. I mean, I don't do cosplay, and there's nothing wrong with cosplay. I'm just saying, maybe all of that ties together.
I'm just gonna save you from yourself.
Why?
You're gonna get canceled from the cosplay community now.
Oh no.
So
I know. And I've just started to get to know so much about it. I know this week I helped a child who wants to start a LARPing club. And they came in and they were looking for books on how to start a club, which a lot of times people come in and they want a book about something, and like half the time nobody's written it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just like we don't own it. It's not really out there. So I sat down with her and just talked about like, okay, this is what to expect when you're starting a club. You're going to want to think about when you're going to meet, who do you want to come, how are you going to advertise it. So I am actually a friend of the cosplay community.
Yeah. There used to be an active LARPing community in Richmond. Remember, like we would go through Monroe Park and they would be there every Saturday.
Yeah.
With their big foam swords and everything.
I love
what
that.
happened to those kids?
I don't
Hope
know.
they're doing great.
Hey, I recently found out that there's like cosplay like raves going on in Richmond. So I think it is a thriving
Now we're going to get canceled for
community.
confusing LARPing and cosplaying.
What is the difference?
I don't know.
Oh no.
I mean, I think there's a level of cosplaying.
Live action role play.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a level of cosplaying that LARPing would be inclusive of cosplaying because you have to get in the costume, but cosplaying wouldn't necessarily mean you're LARPing.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So, anyhow, none of this has anything to do with the book, but I'm really glad we
No, we're going to start a Tress LARPing community.
Yeah. I would love to see it. I would.
We'd have to meet at Sand Dunes.
Yes. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in the Sanderson universe who are open to do some Sanderson cosplay.
That likely is a thing. I mean, he's an author with a very active fan base, which they have to be active because he's a very active writer. It's constantly barraging you with more novels and more novels.
Yes. But yeah, like I said earlier, I don't want even how the journey kind of starts as a spoiler. So like there's a lot about this story that like I don't want to say because it's so interesting and fun how you find out how Tress starts her journey and who she meets. I think we can definitely discuss the fact that she ends up on a ship called the Crow's Song. Mm-hmm. It is run by I don't know if she's evil, but the captain of the Crow's Song is not nice.
That's where I've left off, is where they're talking about her, and the description of her is it would ruin her day if she knew that she made you happy. And it would ruin her week to know that she accidentally made you happy.
Yes.
So
yes.
I feel like she's not a nice lady.
Yes. So Tress, this sort of accidental crew that she ends up with. Some of the characters in that probably the number one is she befriends a talking rat named Huck. And Huck, he's always trying to keep Tress from danger, really. He's always saying, oh, that's not safe. You shouldn't do this. And she does it anyway, kind of thing. But yeah, it's sort of like an animal sidekick. And then there's...
I really enjoy and his perspective is entirely of that of a rat. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I could have got in there, but I would have had to chew through the bag, and people get real mad when rats chew through bags, which, like, why don't they just leave the tops open? Then I wouldn't have to chew through the bag.
Yeah.
It's just like little tidbits like that.
Yeah.
Really hilarious character.
Yes. So he's kind of her sidekick, and then Fort, who is deaf, and they communicate. He has like kind of like a magical board. I kind of thought it was like an iPad. Because Brandon Sanderson, that's another thing with this book, is that he hints about so many things that are like real life things. But he has sort of like a board that he can write on very quickly and to respond to
he has
things.
To charge it by sitting it in the sun.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, like solar panels. It is also like a lot of times we imagine like fantasy, fairy. This is a little fairy tale-esque. You imagine it setting like, you know, hundreds of years ago. But then Hoyt, who's our narrator, will talk about how he wears socks with sandals. And so clearly, like, there's elements of this that are kind of modern day adjacent.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so those are some of the characters. I also like this part. So talking about the names. So this chapter, he's talking about everybody that's on the Crow song. I'm not going to ask you to remember them all, mostly because I don't remember them all. Therefore, for the ease of both narrative and our collective sanity, I'm going to name only the most important characters of the Crow's song. The rest, regardless of gender, I'll call Doug. And so he goes on to say that the name Doug arrives in every language. And Doug is the naming equivalent to the convergent evolution. And once it arrives, it stays. A linguistic great filler, a wake-up call. Once a society reaches peak Doug, it's time to go sit in the corner and think about what it's done. Anyway, there was at least one woman actually named Doug on the Crow song, but I can't remember which one she was. So for the purposes of this story, they're all Dougs.
Yeah, and that convention plays through, like, the characters will be like, and then Doug came up, and they're just not important. They're NPCs. Yeah. I thought that was good. It made me think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where every planet has a drink called a gin and tonic.
Yeah.
And while it may be different, it's still phonetically gin and tonic.
Yes, which, by the way, for anyone listening, for your 42nd birthday, I threw you a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy themed birthday party.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot of fun. I think everybody who came had a good time. But the biggest hit was that I did the gin and tonic station.
Yeah, and unpaid advertisement. Hendrix, we did not know.
Yeah, we were sleeping on
unaware
Hendrix.
of your work.
Yeah.
We bought a variety of gins to make it, and that was...
Hendrix was gone fast.
Yeah, it was gone fast. Chef's kiss. But, yeah, the gin and tonic station was the most popular of the many options.
Yeah.
But, again, though, I enjoy that element of, like, there's a sameness to the universe. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it manifests in gin and tonic, even though it's a different drink everywhere. Here, it's Doug. It's Dougness.
So, yeah, there's a lot of Dougs. So, that was just, there's so many things I like in this book. But just trying to paint the picture for the listener of what it's a lot of fun. The story's a romp.
Yeah. It feels more, if I would compare Mistborn to an action movie, reading an action movie, I would compare this to reading an action comedy. You know? And that's kind of how it feels. It has a little more depth, mainly because I think humor allows a level of depth that just action doesn't quite allow.
100%.
And
it's a connector.
Yeah. And so there is just brief moments of depth, even with, some of the hilarity that comes across in the book.
Yeah, like you said, it has, like The Princess Bride, it has some of those just sort of funny moments where it's so kind of over the top, but you love it anyway. And I was listening to prep for this, I was listening to another podcast who did Tress of the Emerald Sea, and they were talking about Princess Bride, but they kept getting, like, all the names wrong. And they were like... And then he got kidnapped by Dread Pirate Robinson.
Oh.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then they were saying, like, that Humperdinck was killing everybody, but he wasn't going to kill Buttercup. And I was like, no, that was the whole thing. He was going to kill Buttercup because he wanted to start a war with Gilder. And so, yeah, I won't besmirch this podcast's name, but... I did not know they're Princess Bride.
Yeah. Again, I haven't read that book, and I know there's some depth to the book, but I don't recall Humperdinck trying to kill everyone. Although apparently in the book he is way bigger bad than in the movie. Like, he has an underground temple that's for hunting and meant like a maze kind of. Anyway. Side notes.
We need to. I haven't read the book. I've only seen the movie. So anyway.
I'll say so. you chose a drink for today, and it has a really good tie-in. You know, sometimes I like for mine when I did like Hyperion and I did the girlfriend, it's just because I drink those.
It was the very first episode.
It was the first episode, but like some thought went into yours. Why don't we talk about that?
Okay. So,
and I can't talk much more about it because I've already drunk, drinkanus, my entire one.
Yes.
So.
Well, good. So the book starts off, of course, Tress loves her cups, and she loves to drink tea, and the tea on the rock is salty. And they tell you that she's sitting, and she loves it. She drinks her salty tea. So then I was thinking, okay, well, what's a salty drink? And first thing I thought was like a dry martini with like the brine kind of, like almost kind of tastes oceany a little bit. But then I had asked you to do this with me. And so I felt like if I came to you and I was like, and we're going to have dirty, dry martinis, you would have done it. But it's not your favorite. So we are doing a salted caramel coffee cocktail, which is a lot of C's. So, but going back to, and I think you could substitute, you know, just a salted caramel coffee if you wanted to make it non-alcoholic. But yeah, to sweeten the pot, going back to, if you remember, for Nettle and Bone, which we recorded together, that was an espresso martini. You really love coffee.
Because I'm always tired.
I know. I wanted to find some coffee. So this has some coffee in it. And we're going to an adult pool party tonight. And so I knew you were going to have a cup of coffee.
It is a neighborhood pool party.
Yes.
Where the children are not allowed. And I know that sounds weird to all our listeners. And frankly, it is a little weird. But it's not that kind of weird.
It's not.
I know I hit you with the librarian quote earlier. Nothing twisted occurring.
Yeah.
And no, I definitely need something to help stay up. You know, I'm not a good sleeper. So like it makes me inclined for coffee to stay awake and enjoy this wonderful world that we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so positive of you. Okay. Well, good. So I went with the salted caramel coffee cocktail, which has salted caramel Baileys in it. And I used vanilla vodka with this as well. And then I did coffee. And I put a little bit of cold foam on top, and then I sprinkled it with salt, which I really like salty with sweet.
Is this your own recipe? Did you make this up?
No, I think I saw it on Baileys.com.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, congrats to Baileys.com, because everything you just described, I would think of like a very like sweet, sugary drink. And like this was not that. I mean, it was very pleasant.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was definitely, you could taste the coffee.
Unpaid endorsement, Baileys.com. What's your drink?
Well, it was quite a bit of coffee, and I didn't add any simple syrup to it. You certainly could to make it sweeter, but yeah. So anyhow, I think if you do anything with Tress, it has maybe salty. I debated doing something with like Midori or blue carousel just to have like an emerald color. But yeah, you're shaking your head.
Never again, blue carousel.
Yeah.
Never again.
Yeah.
We had so much after the first like month of episodes. It's just like everywhere I looked was blue carousel.
We have blue carousel. Like I was like, well, we have it. Should I use it? But anyway.
There's a good low budget horror movie we can make about our house in blue carousel, where it's like I just open cabinets and it's there. I pour it out and it just shows up again.
I know. Yeah. So anyhow, funny enough, I think that has been the liquor I've talked about the most on this show is like blue carousel.
Yeah.
Not like gin, which is like my favorite liquor.
Yeah, and for future guests, you're welcome to look, we got it. You're welcome to choose a drink with blue carousel.
Like, let me know. I can make it for us.
Yeah. But we're not endorsing that. It's not a fave.
Yeah. Anyhow, so yeah, so I went with the salty drinks, which is very good.
Yeah. So I'm supposed to ask, even though I lived through you reading it, but who were you when you were reading this?
It's like the first question.
I believe I'm hosting this one. It's whatever order I like.
Okay. Well, I was a month younger than I am. I read it last month. Like I already said, I picked it up because it was on my list and I saw it available and I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. And then immediately you're just pulled in by his writing. We haven't really talked about the fact that Hoyt is the narrator of the story, but he's also in the story. You don't really find out probably until probably 50 pages that his name is Hoyt, but he's on the ship that they're eventually on. And he, I think, is an Easter egg for other books in the I think he appears in many different Sanderson novels.
Yeah, I believe in varying levels of importance. Like he was in Mistborn, but I don't remember him. But I'm sure he was there. One thing I enjoyed, and I know Sanderson has a difficult relationship. Is it with Audible or Amazon?
It's probably Amazon. I think
Probably
it's Amazon.
Well, Amazon owns Audible, I guess.
Yeah.
But man, so the previous trilogy, I did the Whisper Sync, so I had the digital copy and then the audiobook.
With Audible, yeah.
Yeah, and the narration. Well, Whisper Sync is an Amazon product,
right?
But it introduced me to the narrator. The narrator is incredible on the audiobook, and he did both Mistborn and this.
Yeah.
Which it was hard for me to separate a little bit because he has certain voices he did in Mistborn that he reuses here, in particular for Hoyt. Is it Kelsier? The main character from Mistborn, the first book. It's the same voice, and I'm just like, that's not Hoyt. Was Hoyt the main character of Mistborn? Going back to I just don't remember that book very well.
Yeah. No, the audiobook is very good for this too. So that also takes me to, so I listened to it first, as I often do, because I'm, just for anyone that listens to this, I do this, I have a book club. And another, my neighborhood book club that's not tied to the podcast. It's not tied to work. And I also write book reviews. So I have at least 2 other books that I have to read every single month. And that's in addition to doing this, anything that I want to read. So anyway, I got on a tangent about that, just explaining why I do so many audiobooks. But then I loved it.
Are you uncomfortable with the perception that you do a bunch of audiobooks?
I'm not uncomfortable.
I know that's a thing.
It is a thing that I'm fighting. I'm not uncomfortable with it, but just sometimes people will say how do you read so much? And I'm like, I have an audiobook going all the time, and I usually have a physical book or my Kindle and so what I'd listened to was from the library. It was from Hoopla, which is an app essentially that you can get ebooks and audiobooks through. But if I really enjoy something that I read from the library, I do try to buy a copy of it. Anyhow, so I went to Barnes & Noble. Sorry for local independent bookstores. I know. I'm sorry.
I think it is now technically a small bookstore.
And I love it. And actually, we need to mention this. You and I met in a Barnes & Noble.
We did. We met in a Barnes & Noble.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, if I ever get famous, Barnes & Noble needs to, use our story. Come to Barnes & Noble. Maybe
you might meet the love of your life.
Yes. So I went to Barnes & Noble, and I thought I could find the hard copy, but they only had the paperback. And so I thought that I was going to get this really nice hardback, feeling pictures and just feeling like you're reading this classic fairy tale kind of thing. And I like the paperback. It's fine. I'm glad I got it. But then I found out what I want is available, but you have to buy it from Brandon Sanderson's website, from Dragonsteel Books. So if you're listening to this, and it's $55.
Oh, wow.
But
Do you have to meet him in a parking lot or a safe space place, like a Craigslist meetup spot. Brandon Sanderson rolls up with a Buick Roadmaster from 1999.
Yeah,
hatchback full of books. What did you want again? Tress?
I think I would like it better if it was, what was that movie that Demi Moore was just in that was so famous? The horror film.
Oh, The Substance?
The Substance. So yeah. I think I like when she has a key, and she gets the key, and then she has to go to the box. I think I would like it better like that. Brandon Sanderson sends you a key, and then you have to figure out where the box is, and then you go, and there is your beautiful hardback edition of Tress of the Emerald Sea.
So if you're Brandon Sanderson, who I'm sure you're listening, This idea will make you $0. This will cost you more money to do this.
But you've got so much money,
But
Brandon.
at this point, just the sheer whimsy of it, I also would prefer if you just met me in a 99 Buick Roadmaster hatchback and just like had a trunk full of books.
Yeah.
I prefer to think like you want to be that hands-on.
Cash only.
Cash only. If I pull a phone out to do Venmo, you just smack it out of my hand.
Yes. So anyhow, so I might get it, but I don't know. So now I've got the paperback version, which is nice. But yeah, I was thinking it was going to feel like Peter Pan, sort of like classic. And also, I thought this was going to have pictures in it, and there are only pictures in that version of it. So,
yeah. Well, I know I'm being a little circuitous with some of the questions here, but going back to the audiobook piece, like, I was thinking about it today as I was listening to it. Some books just don't lend themselves to being an audiobook. Mm-hmm. I like the Whisper Sync thing, and I'm reading I read Gardens of the Moon through doing the Whisper Sync, and it was hard to do the audiobook because it's so complex of a book, and this is a very straightforward narrative that lends itself to being an audiobook. But it does feel like a different thing. Like, there are definitely times I could sit down and read and not want to listen to an audiobook, but vice versa. There's a certain attention I pay from one platform to the other, but they both are complex. Like, it is something. I don't know what I'm trying to get at. I just know there's like this argument about audiobooks versus books, and it just, one, it seems kind of like a wasted energy. But two, like you're still consuming and participating and internalizing a narrative and art and
the story.
The format
and the
shouldn't
words.
matter.
Yeah, it's still, your brain is still processing it. And like, I totally get when people say like listening to a book is not the same experience of reading. Like, obviously it's not the same experience, but it still is helping is good for you.
Am I correct though that is like a big arguing point?
Oh yeah.
Which is it's as someone in a helping field, it's like I am a big proponent of like, if you want to have the most impact on a problem, choose one and really dedicate yourself to it.
Yeah.
But man, like, of all the problems in the world, to be on the hill of like, audiobooks aren't reading.
Yeah, and it's never an educator or it's never a librarian. It's always someone that wants to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
Because they look down on audiobooks, and it's just like, it's so silly. And but there are people, and I don't know. They're not.
Maybe these are hot takes you should just cut out. I don't mean to polarize Vibration Nation.
I mean, I've been pretty vocal.
The Liberation Nation civil war about to occur here.
I think Liberation Nation is very audiobook positive.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there are a couple things I definitely want to make sure we talk about. One is the Kickstarter for this. Did you know about this?
No.
So...
You'd be shocked how little I knew about the writing of this book. Yes.
So Brandon Sanderson put together a Kickstarter to, I think, publish 4 books that he had written during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it was the biggest Kickstarter of all time. I think like it made $40 million or something. And so this was the first of the books that he put out, but because of that, he also was able to publish, I think, like 300 other authors' books. So that was really nice of him to do. So I think that's an important thing with this story, is that... And what's the last thing? What was the other thing I wanted to make sure I said?
Well, this is my fault for not asking the question. I thought we had really hit home on Brandon Sanderson at this point, but clearly I made some assumptions.
Well... So I definitely wanted to make sure I mentioned that part of the story, because I think it's a really important part of the tale of how this got published.
So we've covered who you were. Mm-hmm. We've really talked about who the author was. Uh-huh. We've hit on the narrative of the book and the drink. How would you say, did this book impact you? I've kind of alluded to, like, I kind of view it, not as like heavy as some of the other books I might read. And that kind of makes it so, like, for me, Mistborn, I think had the same impact on me as like watching Avatar. It was like I had a good time watching it. Couldn't tell you anything what happened. It wasn't significant. Didn't impact me. But I enjoyed it. And like Avatar, I point out because that's the highest grossing film of all time with the least cultural impact as measured by some group I can't remember.
I'm not an Avatar fan.
Yeah. So, but this feels a little different than I would say Mistborn did, which is, weird because that was like a 2,000-page commitment for me for was Mistborn. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it impacted you in some way, shape, or form?
I don't think I'm changed from this book, if that's what you're getting at. What this book is, I think it was just a fun fantasy. It's sweet. It's funny. It is a story from beginning to end. There is a problem. There's character development. As you said, Tress starts out, she just wants to be ordinary, and she would have been happy to stay on the rock. But because Charlie is taken, then she has no choice. She has to push herself to her limits a little bit. And it was fun. And then the people that she met, and then he does a great job of talking about like group dynamics too, of, who's a follower and who's a leader. And Tress is a little bit of an accidental leader. And yeah, I just thought that he was really thoughtful with the characters. And like I said, just kind. They're really kind to each other.
Yeah, I also kind of enjoyed the level of foreshadowing the book has, where it's a lot of Chekhov's guns. Like in the first 20 pages, they talk about the only way I'd go on an adventure is if someone tried to steal you, which happens 28 pages after that.
Yeah.
Or it's like look, there are no talking pigeons in this book, but there's a talking rat. And in 10 pages, a talking rat emerges.
Yeah.
A lot of comical foreshadowing, I would say.
And I enjoy that kind of writing, too. If you were going to talk about, like, who would I recommend this book for, I would say, it's reminding me of the things I love in T. Kingfisher books, too. Not as dark, obviously. But just... I do like strong female characters. I'm going to be drawn to stories. Most of the books I read are written by women, I think. But this is by a man, but the female characters are great in it. And yeah, I think it would just be for someone who wants an adventure story where it's funny and you get something out of it. You could read this with your kid. Like, I'm actually trying to get her to read it right now. So
yeah, answering the who's it for question. Maybe you need a palate cleanser book. You read something heavy, and now, like, I just finished Gardens of the Moon, and for me it's nice to not read something that heavy. That's the first part of a 10-book series. Yeah. But
it's still very, like, well written, too. So I don't, like, sometimes people say palate cleanser, and it's sort of, like a suspense. Not that those are poorly written, but there's a lot of thoughtfulness in this as well. So
I don't think anyone has ever accused Sanderson of being a poor writer.
No.
I would compare Sanderson fantasy to, like, it's like the Ted Lasso of fantasy. Like, it's hitting the notes, but somehow it's a little wholesome.
Yes.
Even when it's dark, it's a little wholesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely would, if you're interested in like a fantasy book, something you could read with your kid, or or just wanting to see people come together to fight for a cause. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it's like an onion. You can read the whole chapter, and then you find out something totally new in it that you didn't know before about the story. So I loved it. So
well, I'm excited to hear Brandon Sanderson hear this episode. Feel the challenge to write a grimdark fantasy that he sells out of the back of his of a station wagon, or through a complex series of keys. And clues on where to go.
I would be so here for it.
Maybe he does write grimdark fantasy, and the only way to access it is you see him driving around in a 90s station wagon, or you get a key.
Man, now if I get a key in the mail after this, I'm gonna lose it. So anyway.
No, now you just set up like a serial killer to like.
Oh no! Don't send me any keys.
Yeah, I'm not letting her have any keys.
All right. Well, thank you so much for interviewing me, and also for you're gonna finish the book too.
Yeah, and you describe the drink like you have to cajole me into coming to do. Like, I don't mind doing these episodes.
I know.
You're like, better get a caffeine addict something that he'll drink to go on the show. I do like doing the episodes.
Good. Well, I like having you here, so thanks. Thank you for spending some time with me and my guests for an episode of Drinks in the Library. For more information about the show, you can find us on Instagram at Drinks in the Library, on the World Wide Web, drinksinthelibrary.com, or shoot me an email at drinkspod@gmail.com. Until next time, cheers.